In today's episode, Heidi Berger of the Foundation for Genocide Education introduces Sivane Hirsch and Sabrina Moisan, who are the authors of a new teacher's guide entitled Teaching About Genocide. The mission of the Foundation for Genocide Education is to collaborate with governments to ensure that the history of genocide and the steps leading to it are taught in high schools. The government is funding this guide, along with professional workshops for teachers. The Foundation for Genocide Education believe that the human connections are essential in transmitting the lessons of the past. When teaching topics as complex as genocide, it can be easy to cover the facts and figures and forget the humans affected by history. Please enjoy today's episode.
First of all, thank you, Julie, for inviting us to speak to the QPAD Human Rights and Social Justice Committee about this incredible new pedagogical guide on teaching about genocide. Actually, we recently addressed teachers from remote areas in Quebec about the guide at the last QPAD convention, and there's such a hunger and thirst for this guide to be in classrooms. It's incredible. I remember clearly when we met with this group of engaged teachers back in 2017, when the foundation was in discussion with the education ministry, with the researchers and writers to improve the resources available to teach this very sensitive subject. We've come a long way since then. In 2017, the foundation was invited to sit on a government committee to create this unique and groundbreaking tool called Studying Genocide. This guide is an initiative of our foundation, realized in collaboration with incredible researchers and writers who you have with you today from the University of Sherbrooke and the University of Quebec at Trois-Rivières and the Montreal Holocaust Museum. And this has been funded by the Minister of Education of Quebec. The guide features case studies of 9 20th century genocides, along with definitions of 6 stages of genocide, lesson plans, and customizable reference documents. Our foundation produced promotional and instructional videos for the guide, as well as survivor testimonial videos that accompany each case study. The guide was officially launched with success online in April 2022 and is going to be available in English this April, reaching 600 high schools and over 330,000 students. We are very fortunate in the choice of that the government provider of these researchers and writers chosen to produce and coordinate this mammoth project. Sivane Hirsch is a professor of ethics in the Department of Education Services at the Université de Quebec at Trois-Rivières, and Sabrina Moisan is a professor of history in the education faculty of the Université de Sherbrooke. Both are extremely well versed in the history of genocide and have published extensively on the subject. The result of their combined efforts over a 6-year period is one of the most comprehensive resource materials available to teachers today. With the rise in racism, anti-Semitism, and online hate, engaging your students in discussions about human rights and social justice is more relevant than ever. I would like to now, I'm actually proud now to introduce Professors Sivane Hirsch and Sabrina Moisan to give you a more comprehensive overview of the guide. As well, I'd like to say links to the guide as well as a recording of the presentation will be made available to you so you can share them with your colleagues. Thank you. I present now Sabrina and Sivane.
Thank you, Heidi. I will share my screen, Sivane, and you. Yeah, but thanks everybody for receiving us today. It's a pleasure to show the guide to you.
So I will be beginning actually our short presentation. So first, really thank you for having us, for inviting us to show you our guide, and thank you for Heidi and Marcy to create the contact with you. I think Heidi presented us and the project enough, so we will start immediately with the guide itself. So we have three main goals for today, because we don't have a lot of time. We wanted to share with you some pedagogical considerations about how we approach the subject of genocide education. And so you'll see we have what we call anti-racist and inclusive education comparative approach. So we combine a few approaches to answer what we find is necessary for teaching about genocides. We will show you very quickly, because it's a huge tool, but we will show you the tool and its components. And we will concentrate even more on the learning paths. And then we will share with you a bit of the understanding of how we actually present the analytical tools of this guide. Again, it's a very short presentation, so it will be a bit like, bande annonce. How you say that in English, I forget.
Whirlwind?
A trailer.
A trailer of what you will find later on the guide. So this is the web page of the guide. The guide is accessible for everyone on this web page. Now it's in French. It will be in English at the end in April, end of April maybe. It will be available to all also in English. So the first thing we wanted to share with you is these three approaches that we use to think of how to present genocide in school. And the first thing is really the idea of that we need to adopt an anti-racist approach that is thinking of genocide as something that happens at the end of a racist process in which, so that's why the first, well, actually here it's the last, but this is why we present a large place, we give a large place to the question of racism in this tool. So how to understand racism, and racism is in the current situation today, but also how can we understand it today, but also in the different cases of genocides we study. We also have two different definitions of the guide that we will present to you later on. But the first definition is the UN's definition, because what we want to see is how it is defined from the point of view of a jury, God.
Justice
Point of view. Thank you. But also how we can understand it from a more historical point of view, and that would be the genocide process grid. Then you have in the guide, you have, as we said, learning paths that are aimed to really help teachers to actually to accompany teachers with the tools and the material that was prepared. Of course, these learning paths are proposals. They are not obligated to follow as such. So we will show you that later. And you have a very large documents folder in which you have first the text that are describing the 9 genocides that are presented in this guide for now. But you also have, and all these descriptions are following the same path that is respecting the genocide process grid, as you will see later on. So we actually the analytical tool that we propose, I already put it into action in this text that are describing the genocides. And you have complementary information about different concepts that are needed to understand, that you need to understand in order to follow the different descriptions. So that's how it looks on the side. This is the complementary, the additional concepts that you can see.
Okay, so we will show you very shortly the learning paths that we have produced or that we propose to teachers. So there are like 4 options for the moment. The first one is the case study. So you have the 9 genocide, and for each of them you can decide to go like in a more, I would say, traditional inquiry or investigation of the genocidal process. So for us, it was really important, and it's important for you to know that our goal was really to help students understand the genocidal process. So it's not really a case study that will go really, really deep into each of these 9 genocides. We provided a synthesis, like a brief text about each of them. But of course, if you would like to go deeper into each of these genocides, you perhaps would like to complement with other, I don't know, information. And so the inquiry goes like in a very traditional way, as I said. So it starts with an open question. At first, it's more general, like what, I don't remember, like what's the role of racism in genocide, for example. And there's also a specific question which is related to this specific case of the Holocaust here. So, for example, we ask students if the genocide would have been the same if it was not in the context of Second World War. So they have its open question, and there is not only one answer. And the idea is to propose hypotheses to these questions and then go deeper in the exploration of the case by studying the ideological context, then the 6 stages of genocide that we will present a bit later, to formulate a response, and then to close this case study on a general discussion, coming back on the questions and more discussing the sense of this specific case. And then we have another path which has the same structure. I would just go back a little bit to focus here on the objective of this first pedagogical path, which is to understand the case of the Holocaust in this example and its specific issues. So it's a way, to modelize the reflection that we propose in this guide. The second option is also based on the inquiry, but its objective is to understand how racism manifested itself in this particular genocide, the preventive action that were taken or not, and the justice issues in the past that were already gotten, and in the present. So what is there to get regarding justice? But this guide, its main strength, I would say, is the comparison approach that really helps to understand the genocidal process. So we propose teachers to compare different genocides, to bring students to study different genocides, and then bring them together to understand the process, the stages of genocide. So it has the same inquiry structure, where we ask questions, open questions, and then the same steps here. And the objective of this comparison is really more to understand the genocidal process and its different dimensions, because when we look at the UN definitions and the grid we offer to analyze genocide, we come to understand that genocide can be very different from one case to another. And that's the strength of this tool, to help the students to understand the process. And the same, the fourth option is the same comparison model, but which is focused on racism, again, prevention and justice. So the first one is really on the genocidal process, the steps, and to recognize the manifestation of actions of genocide. And the second one is really focused on racism, prevention, and justice. So each case of genocide is presented in the same way, like Sivane said earlier. So here you have the example for the Holocaust. So each one, you have the two first pages present it's like an overview of what we will find in the text. So we have a map, we can situate geographically what we'll be talking about. Then there's a timeline where we try to keep only 10 key moments to situate on the timeline. And you have the highlights, what, when, where, who. This is really just to help students have a glimpse of what they will be studying really fast. But then they start the inquiry, and we propose to start with the meeting of someone, of a survivor. So we propose a text that is coming from a testimony, but we also have the videos that Heidi was talking in the introduction, and we will show you one a bit later. And then the text starts with an issue. I don't know if we will use this word issue. That this is not the final version of the guide. In French, we say problématisation. So the idea is to present the case with the questions we're asking ourselves today about this genocide. So there is a conversation about the 9 genocide. There's an actual conversation about them. So what are the questions we can ask? Then it presents an historical overview where we want to present some causes that led to the genocide, but also and mainly the ideological context that is really important to understand afterwards the stages of genocide. So, and then every case is presented according to these 6 stages that we will present later on, but it's really short, as you can see. For classification, the first stages, you have always like a piece of testimony, an artifact or a picture, a small text. You have here the lexic, and so it's and it goes like that for the 6 stages and the justice issues. Sivane.
So yeah, I have my mic. So what you've seen here is already how it works. The approach of anti-racist. So as we've said, we put the question of racism at the center of our reflection. Comparative approach, which is really the goal of this guide at the end of the day, and to better understand the genocidal process, and the idea of inclusive education that brings different perspectives to the different perspectives existing about this question to the reflection of the students. And it's really in this sense that we also thought of the analytical tools. So the first tool is the defining of genocide, according to international law. And international law, so it's the definition of at the UN from 1948. You have here the official definition. They also have it on the guide as a tool in itself, and it's really important to go through this definition to understand. And I don't want to read the whole definition, but you can see the most important part is that they define genocide as the acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group as such. And then you have the 5 acts, and it's really important to understand that it's one of these acts. You don't need to have all of these acts. And there's 2 main reasons why it's really important for us to use this definition. First, this is how we decided which genocide will be included in the guide. And second, when you look at these acts and what is included in the legal definition, you understand why these acts are these genocides are defined as such. Now we don't know. Okay, we restart.
I'm sorry. I just pushed the presentation button.
And now I realize it was supposed to be like
this.
this.
I can go here.
No,
I
fine.
can choose
But
were.
in the meantime, I can tell you that this is something that is really interesting to do also when we do the training with teachers. We realize how confronting it can be, because a lot of times we think of genocide only as the first act, killing members of the group. And when we see all the other acts, we realize how complex the phenomenon is. But it's only a beginning, because this is the legal definition. And what we want to do is to understand an historical social process. So that's why we have our second tool. Do you want to
I
add?
would just, yes, I want to add something here, because you know that there's an actual actually there is a debate in the society about is there an indigenous genocide or not in Canada, and you have the same discussion in different society about different cases of genocide, and often these debates show that people have different understanding of what is a genocide, and this definition is really helpful to make that really clear.
It becomes clear. But
yeah.
even when we understand, okay, so we are in front of genocide in these cases, it's still very very important to understand that not all genocides are the same, and that is why the genocidal process is so important for us. So we actually used that to begin to propose our tool. We actually used what is known as the 10 stages of the genocide that Berger Stanton proposed already in 1996, and that you can actually go and see by yourself on the Genocide Watch site. And you see that he has 10 stages. You will see that we only have 6. We realized by teaching these stages to our students at the university that it was very complex to distinguish the different stages, and that it became more of a discussion of details than rather to understand the real phenomenon that is important. So we actually reduced the 10 stages to 6 stages that are easier to distinguish. So going from classification, dehumanization, polarization, organization, persecution and assassination, and then the denial. And you would see that, we presented them like this, one within the other, because classification will always be there, but we will go further away in a genocide, and we'll add more stages to what is what is happening during a genocide. But it doesn't mean that classification disappears. That's the first thing I wanted to say about this. And the second thing is that we brought this to 6 steps, but we added the point of view of not only of the genociders, which is a lot of times what we see in genocide history, in any kind of history. We follow those who acted, that put the action in place, while here we want to see at the same time the genociders, but also their victims, and also those who were there, not only considering them as bystanders, but people that were living there at the same time, and what they could have done to prevent a genocide. And this is really important for us also for today. When we think of this guide as something that is part of a citizenship education, civic education. So it's the idea that there are moments where we can act, each one of us can act to prevent certain things, and then at other points it's more a question of our government that can act to prevent certain things from happening. And so, do you want us to? I don't know. I didn't see the time. Time flies. So yeah. all the stages are presented always in the same way. Maybe you can just So we have the manifestation. So the actions by the perpetrators, the impact on the victims, and the prevention of that can be done at individual level or at the state level. We try to give specific examples that will help the students to better understand how we can really identify these steps. And also we see the same stages, we explain them in the same way in the description of the genocide. So now you have all the steps like this. Do you want to add something, Sabrina, to that?
No, that's it. That's just that each step or stage is presented in the same way, in a generic way. Like here, it's more the analytical grid, but then the students have to fill that, for each case of genocide that they have to study.
With the manifestations they can see. The other part of the analytical tool, so now we had the definition of genocide, but the other part is the definition of racism. And as we've said, racism is really an important part for us to understand in genocides. It's certain that you have other reasons that can explain the different genocides, but racism is something that is in all genocides, and that it is the ideology that allows genocide to occur. And so the first thing we do when we speak of racism is to explain it as a social construction, and not to distinguish this idea of racism as something that can be a real differentiation of people, whether it's actually more of a social construction. So we propose this definition. So racism, far from being science or scientific theory that we dictate an attitude and a conduct, seeks on the contrary to legitimize itself by an intellectual construction, a rationalization. And this is really the basic of our idea of how to speak of racism, specifically because so many of the genocides are hard to understand if you don't have this understanding of racism. So we explain in the guide the different racist theories and ideologies, starting from the classical biological racism that was more at the time of the colonization, and how it focused on physical criteria, passing through the racism on inferiorization, that is more representing the industrialization era, where it was more a question of social classes, and then going to differentiation which is the racism we see more today, since the exposure to different cultures through the North-South migrations and the whole process of decolonization, which focuses more on the values and ways of life of different groups. This also becomes something that is really interesting to study in today's society, and then go and understand genocides, and not thinking that this is something of the past that is not relevant for today society.
So just to end, or maybe to say that we went really fast on what you find in this guide, which is really well, it's a complex tool, but there are paths to find your way quite easily, I think. And we offer teachers training, where we go deeper into each of these aspects that we presented today. And we wanted to finish the presentation on one of the videos that you find on the website, and that were made by the foundation with survivors or children of survivors. And we ask them all the same questions. So they are short videos, and they all present the story of the person in a very short version, and then why is it important for them that we study genocide today. So I don't know if we show the whole thing or not. Here you can stop us, Julie, if you need time, but maybe we will present 1 or 2 minutes, so you can have
5 minutes. Go for it. I think that would be very worthwhile. So please do. Thank you.
Okay.
Je ne crois pas mes parents ont imaginé que l'atrocité de Khmer Rouge, que la crime de masse peut exister au Cambodge. J'ai été née, j'ai été élevée à Phnom Penh, la capitale du Cambodge. Le régime de Khmer Rouge a un concept de l'égalité, d'abolir cette classe sociale. Nous sommes tous égaux. Nous sommes tous dans la classe paysanne. C'est un régime communiste. Nous, les Cambodgiens qui ont vécu en ville, considérés comme les gens exploiteurs, la différence entre nous et les gens qui ont vécu à la campagne, qui ont vécu dans la pauvreté, de misère, plus de difficultés que nous. Les gens en voulaient, ou les gens qui ont vécu en ville. Pour eux, c'est que les intellectuels doivent être abolis. Les gens plus instruits, scolarisés, les fonctionnaires, l'armée, tous sont des gens qui ont le concept à l'opposé des concepts de Khmer Rouge. Donc il ne faut pas qu'il doit exister dans une seule classe seulement, c'est la classe paysanne. Une fois arrivé dans un régime Khmer Rouge, on est tous séparés. Je suis séparée de mes frères, ma soeur, de mes parents. Je suis placée dans un centre parmi les autres enfants. Ma soeur fait partie de notre groupe des adolescents. Mes frères sont dans différents groupes. Le matin, à 4h, 5h, on est obligé de se lever, d'aller travailler avec quelques graines de riz à la fin de la journée qu'on a droit. Je me rappelle d'avoir mangé toutes sortes d'affaires. Quand je travaille dans le champ de riz, quand j'ai vu une crabe qui passait à côté, je l'ai attrapée. Je devais manger, j'ai mangé tout cru. C'est sûr, maintenant, j'en peux plus. C'est en prison sans mur, sans toit, c'est tout simplement en prison. Le régime est tombé le 7 janvier 1979. En ce moment-là, je suis encore dans la main des Khmer Rouges jusqu'au mai 1980. Moi et mes deux frères et ma sœur, nous réussissons à se regrouper avant de retourner à Phnom Penh, la capitale du Cambodge. Dans le régime de Khmer Rouge, j'ai perdu mes parents. J'ai perdu mon frère aîné et mon frère cadet. J'ai perdu mon grand-père, j'ai perdu mes oncles, mes tantes. Ma mère a une famille élargie, on est 30-40 de personnes. Et en 1980, quand on retournait, il nous restait à peine 10 personnes. Parfois, je conduis la voiture pour retourner au travail. C'est une flash qui m'arrive. Je pleure dans la voiture. C'est très difficile. Il n'y a pas de mots pour exprimer la souffrance qu'on a connue. Souvent, on dit on tourne la page. Mais ce n'est pas aussi facile comme ça. Je souhaite que le Québec intègre ces situations dans notre programme d'enseignement. Ça va permettre aux élèves de réaliser que ce crime-là a été existé et qu'il y en a encore des gens qui ont connu ces atrocités, ils sont encore vivants et qu'eux autres apprennent à mettre dans la peau de ces gens. Imaginez que si vous êtes dans cette situation, comment vous sentez? Que ce soit noir, que ce soit jaune, que ce soit blanc, ça fait mal. pour n'importe qui.
Ok, peut-être pour conclure. Oh, sorry.
En anglais.
Now I speak French. Perhaps to conclude this presentation, we should say that we had the partnership with the foundation, but also with many communities that are survivors of genocides or children of survivors, and they played a role at different steps of the process of producing this guide. And so we are very lucky in Quebec that we have these people here, so it makes it really more relevant perhaps for the kids to know that.